Warning. I chain smoke and I say fuck a lot. But I accept myself for the way I am. I accept you too. Viewer discretion advised.
I've been rereading Inventing the AIDS Virus by Peter Duesberg, and I came across a story that was definitely worth a share and a follow-up. It's the true story of Lindsay Nagel.
Cheryl Nagel's dream was on the verge of becoming tangible reality in late October of 1990. She and her husband Steve had wanted a child of their own for a long time. Now her flight was arriving deep in the heart of Eastern Europe, Romania.
In 1990, we flew to Romania to adopt a baby. We found Lindsay, and she was only 2 weeks old.
Lindsay was a happy, healthy child. The Nagels took her for a complete checkup with a clinic near Minneapolis. The doctor's battery of tests included one for HIV. To everyone's astonishment, Lindsay was confirmed positive. Lindsay still seemed a picture of health. However, the Nagels were now told she had the deadly AIDS virus. Then the nightmare began. Steve and Cheryl agreed to treat Lindsay prophylactically, that is, to delay the onset of symptoms as long as possible. They were referred to a specialist at the Children's Hospital in Minneapolis, where the doctor examined Lindsay and found no symptoms at all. No infections, no abnormalities, nothing. She is a very bright, smiling, and happy girl, noted the doctor, who nevertheless decided to head off a potential AIDS pneumonia immediately. Lindsay was prescribed Septra to be taken 3 times each week. According to the physician's desk reference, Septra can cause nausea, vomiting, anorexia, and bone marrow depression, and also includes rash, fever, and leukopenia among its side effects. Even the drug manufacturer's Burroughs Wellcome strongly recommends against using Septra for more than 2 weeks in children or adults. Young Lindsay, however, would take the drug for some 9 months. When the Nagels brought their daughter back a week later, the specialist announced that Lindsay's T-cell count was perfectly normal, nor had any infections shown up. But given the HIV infection, the doctor wanted to slow the presumably inevitable appearance of AIDS. This time, she prescribed the only drug approved for AIDS therapy, AZT, a chemotherapeutic drug designed to kill growing cells. Lindsay began swallowing a total of 120 milligrams of the drug every single day in addition to her Septra. As with Septra, AZT is produced by the pharmaceutical giant Burroughs Wellcome. Both drugs have toxic effects, but compared to the sulfa drug, AZT amounts to poison. The doctor herself admitted some of the effects in her medical report of the visit, stating that Lindsay's mother was explained the side effects of zidovudine, which are primarily bone marrow suppression with anemia, sometimes nausea and vomiting, and rarely the cause of other symptoms like skin rash. If anything, this understated the effects. AZT kills dividing cells anywhere in the body, causing ulcerations and hemorrhaging, damage to hair follicles and skin, killing mitochondria, the energy cells of the brain, wasting away of muscles, and the destruction of the immune system and other blood cells. Children are affected more severely because many more of their cells are growing than in adults. Amazingly, AZT was first approved for treatment of AIDS in 1987, and then for prevention of AIDS in 1990. Totally unaware of the toxicity of this controversial drug, the Nagels faithfully fed their daughter the AZT syrup 4 times a day.
She gave us a prescription for retrovir syrup, which is AZT. It was so important for us to get something to help our baby that we sat on the floor in the pharmacy and gave her first dose.
At their next visit the following month, the doctor strangely began praising Lindsay's improvement. Upon reflection, the Nagels grew puzzled. What improvement could the doctor have meant, since Lindsay had suffered no medical problems at all before the treatment began? In fact, their daughter was already changing for the worst. Lindsay developed no infectious diseases, but her appetite continued to decline. The doctor acknowledged that the child was falling further behind the normal growth curve. By the time Lindsay reached her first birthday on October 15, 1991, her adoptive parents began to lose patience. The doctor seemed to believe the lack of growth had more to do with HIV infection than with any drug effects of Septra or AZT. As the Nagels began reading up on the officially recognized side effects of these drugs, their uneasiness turned to outright anxiety when they found perfect descriptions of their daughter's condition. Becoming suspicious of their doctor for not admitting or discussing these side effects, Steve and Cheryl took Lindsay to Dr. Margaret Hostetter at the University of Minnesota Clinic. They felt overwhelmed and wanted clearer advice. Running a complete battery of tests, she decided to take Lindsay off the Septra immediately. As soon as the Septra prescription ended, Lindsay began rebounding. Within 1 month, her weight had again increased, though hardly back to normal, and her appetite recovered slightly. Amazingly, Dr. Hostetter completely missed the point. She had increased Lindsay's AZT dosage at the same time as ending the Septra, so at the Nagels' next visit she credited the baby's improvement to the AZT. After the rapid side effects of the sulfa drug had disappeared, the slower toxicity of the extra AZT began taking over. By March, she virtually stopped growing altogether. Her parents, fending off an increasing nervousness with each passing month, nevertheless kept up the daily syrup feeding routine. A few weeks later, the doctor had stretched the Nagels' patients by pressuring them to put Lindsay on DDL, a chemotherapy like AZT. The Nagels refused DDL therapy, but now they were reconsidering AZT as well. The tension finally erupted a few days after Lindsay's second birthday on October 15, 1992. Steve and Cheryl woke up one night to the tormented screams of their daughter. Racing into her room, they found her sitting up and tearfully clutching her legs.
Leg cramps started. Once that started, it got progressively worse.
She would just grab him and go, ow, and screaming in the middle of the night. Just like it wasn't an ache, it was like, must have been sharp pains. It's just made you feel sick to your stomach.
The muscle pains were unbearable, leg massages, Tylenol. They used anything that would allow Lindsay to sleep again. The same thing happened the next evening, and the next one. Night after night, the pain returned with ruthless consistency to deprive the entire family of sleep for a whole month. The Nagels recognized precisely what was happening to their daughter. Based on their own study, they had already learned that AZT produces muscle wasting as one of its side effects. By chance, they stumbled across an article discussing Peter Duesberg's dissent against AZT treatment for AIDS.
My dad had just read his latest National Review, and there was an article in there about Peter Duesberg, a maverick cell biologist. He said he didn't think HIV caused AIDS. He said, I can't replicate this in my office. I can't get this virus to do anything. We thought, oh my gosh, my dad is really daydreaming.
Upon tracking down his phone number and calling, they received an earful about the drug's toxic effects. From there, the Nagels talked with several other scientists dissenting against the HIV hypothesis. By early November, the picture had become clear.
So when you start on AZT, you're killing off your bone marrow, and the blood system notices a defect in red cells and other blood cells and sends out a signal, overproduce as long as you can. And for a while then, people start producing more than they did prior to the treatment. But as you kill off the sources from where it comes, you very soon bring it down to below where they started from, and ultimately pretty soon to death. So within a year or two, most people on AZT are gone, killed off from the AZT. Some last longer and some last shorter, depending on how sensitive they are to the drug.
AZT is a DNA chain terminator, a poison designed to randomly destroy the DNA synthesis of reproducing cells. It was initially developed to treat leukemia victims, but after animal testing, the FDA determined that it was too toxic for use in human beings and banned it. But in 1987, when the AIDS scare hit its height, the FDA was pressured into approving the drug for use for the first time in human beings, even for people who were healthy and showed no sign of AIDS.
They're dispersing AZT to 200,000 Americans in the name of a hypothesis that stands unproven, a drug that is the most toxic drug that has ever been licensed for long-term consumption in the free world.
The day they received a letter from Duesberg with scientific documents on AZT and on the shaky evidence for an AIDS virus, the Nagels stopped feeding their daughter the drug. Lindsay's changes took even her parents by surprise.
We just decided between ourselves in November to write to Peter Duesberg and say, sorry to bother you. Are you for real? And if Lindsay were your daughter, what would you do? On November 11th, we got a big package, and he said, you must take your daughter off AZT immediately or she will die from it like Kimberly McGallis.
After Lindsay was off AZT, she became a new child almost overnight. She started sleeping much better, including longer hours. Her muscle cramps went away. She started eating at least 2 to 3 times as much every day as she had ever eaten before. After seeing our nutritionist for only 2 months and ridding Lindsay's body of toxic effects of being on AZT and Septra, Lindsay now, at 27 months, had an upswing on the chart. Her weight has been going up ever since. Dr. Hostetter knew nothing about Lindsay's being off AZT. The Nagels contacted the physician to demand an open discussion about the drug's merits at their next visit, to take place in early December of 1992. They were caught completely off guard by the doctor's reaction. Dr. Hostetter looked very tense. We were verbally attacked as if we were 5-year-olds, and how dare we question her opinion, let alone the use of AZT. She told us how lucky we were that Lindsay had tolerated AZT so well and had not needed to go on DDL up until now. Then Dr. Hostetter drew a large diagram on the blackboard and told us, as she reminded us that she had told us all of this before, which cells AZT affects and which ones it definitely does not affect. If one of AZT's main side effects is bone marrow toxicity, how does a doctor know which cells the AZT will affect? How does the AZT know? After our lecture, Dr. Hostetter gave us her 20-minute sales pitch for AZT. The parents felt too intimidated by the meeting to let the doctor know they had ended the AZT treatment. When the Nagels finally informed the doctor in writing and switched Lindsay to a chiropractor and nutritionist, Hostetter's mood turned downright ugly. Her response letter thundered a stream of dire warnings. As we have discussed repeatedly, AIDS is a fatal disease. To take Lindsay off Retrovir now will, I am afraid, hasten her decline and death. As parents, you are responsible for your child's health and life. Running away from qualified medical care will not help you, and it will certainly jeopardize Lindsay's life. You must take Lindsay to a qualified MD immediately. Hostetter followed up the letter with an angry call to the Nagels' chiropractor on New Year's Eve. She wanted to warn our chiropractor that she had no right to be seeing Lindsay, recalled Cheryl. She also said that there are foster homes to provide care for children who were in Lindsay's predicament, living with parents who wouldn't give their daughter AZT. Lindsay remains off AZT and all other toxic drugs. Her healthy growth pattern continues, she suffers no unusual diseases, and she is developing normally. And on October 15th, 1995, Lindsay celebrated her 5th birthday with HIV and without AZT in excellent health.
Once we came to the conclusion that this was the drug that was causing this problem, irregardless of what the HIV was going to do, she was going to come off the drug no matter what.
If taking her off the drugs meant that she could sleep through the night and be happy for 6 months, that would be worth it, rather than live in agony for 2 years or 12 months. After we took Lindsay off AZT, her weight did go up.
Within a couple of days, the leg cramps went away.
And her physical body seemed to be doing pretty well, but it was like she was disturbed. She was agitated very easily.
Her lifespan changed all the time after she got to be 2 years old, and then she'd only live to be 5.
When she got to be a little older, then they said, oh, she might live to be 7.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't live into double digits, and that's just was our life then.
Of 12 Minnesota children with HIV at that time, medical reports say Lindsay remained the sole survivor. Lindsay stopped taking AZT, lived a healthy life, and grew up. Here she is with Peter Duesberg.
And you've always known since you were very tiny who Peter Duesberg was. Yep. She just knew that he was the man who saved her life, Peter Duesberg.
In 2012, Lindsay had a baby of her own, Rico. And like his mother, he was HIV positive. Malheur County became involved when the family canceled 2 of Rico's doctor's appointments after he was born. 2 months later, they got Rico back, but the county oversaw the case and Rico's care for more than the year and a half that followed.
The case of a Brownsdale baby born with HIV takes an unexpected twist. Grandparents of baby Rico say he was admitted to the hospital and taken off his treatment. Those drugs have been at the center of a custody battle between the Nagels and Moore County.
The family believes that these drugs kill, and earlier this week, a judge had ruled that Rico has to stay on them and be supervised by the county.
ABC 6 News anchor Ellery McCardle has been following this story from the beginning and has more on the investigation.
Last night, Rico got a severe rash, one that the Nagels were told is life-threatening. So they took him to the emergency room at Mayo. Then they say doctors ordered Rico to be taken off the treatment immediately. This is video of Rico last night. You can see his chest is red from that rash. Antiretroviral treatment is a combination of prescription drugs. I was shown the warning label for one thought to have caused Rico's rash. On the label, it shows that a rash is a common side effect and that the drug can cause a serious allergic reaction that could cause death. This is exactly the reason why the Nagels don't want Rico on these drugs, because they think they will eventually kill him. However, this treatment is commonly given to HIV patients and is the recommended treatment by Mayo Clinic in this case. The Nagels say Rico will stay off the drugs until his appointment on Tuesday. Then it's up to their doctor.
Let's say the doctor say that he has to go back on the drugs. Will you comply with that?
He'll have to go back on the drugs. There's no choice about that. They will remove the child if we do not put him back on the drugs, or if we do not follow Mayo Clinic's standard.
Well, it was a real struggle for the last 2.5 years, Steve Nagel said. Lindsay got sick the following year. Her family believes from all the pressure and stress. She went back on HIV medication and fought through pneumonia and pancreatitis. Her immune system couldn't hold up to the bacterial infection. She died in August at the age of 24, after she got back on the medication.
Not only was AZT worthless in preventing cancer or in treating cancer, but in fact it caused it. The AIDS drugs, not only AZT, but all of the ones after that, including very much the protease inhibitors and all of the other nucleoside analogs, are harmful, and the AIDS drugs, probably since the late 80s, are the #1 cause of so-called AIDS.
And found in the comment section of Guinea Pig Kids, ARV babies in New York City on YouTube, see Nagel 2 years ago. It's still going on. My grandson just passed away last week. He was over-medicated on day 2 of his life, and it finally took him. Hashtag Lindsay Nagel story. And unfortunately, I have confirmed this. Cheryl Ann Nagel lost her battle with cancer July 10, 2021. Preceded in death by her daughter, Lindsay Nagel, and grandson, Rico Martinez. Fucking stoned.
I got a motherfucking spaceship. Oh, fuck. Oh, cool. I got it.